Trong này hả? Chị ơi, ở trong này hay trong
Orang sempat dengan sama dengan mereka challenge nari, bukan diraku, ada jauh jaga ada kalau tak public talk tak. Sama dengan sama lah, masih dalam kamu yang mau bala, sedang mau show, berjalo, sama lah nanti rawa show. Okey, sama tu hari hari jual, jauh tu, ane memang lah ane jaga tak public talk, saya ni hari jual kalau mau buat jaga ni ane, kalau sedang bidding lah okey yo. Last waktu channel, kalau last hari show tu channel, tu buat lah. Enggak satu periode itu tunggal kucing last dah.
Yeah, he was there this morning.
That's great. Thank you.
Chilonidon, Yame Chuju, Daonibe, Set Nishsaji in. Femilana Mebe, Uti, Chino, Moskyambe Chimucho, Minnesota, China Mala, Sunje, the Lando Galop Naki, Zerim Shamse. Welcome, Your Holiness. We would like to invite a few elected members to welcome His Holiness. Even though we prepared this visit in a short notice, we have many dignitaries here today. Due to time constraint, we would like to recognize two elected guests on behalf of all. May I please request Representative Carolyn Lane and Mayor Betsy Hutchins, City of Minneapolis, to please come to the stage to greet His Holiness.
Okay. Thank you.
Sering Tambo, Chidin Sobe Sozo, Member Tsawang Wuju Chone, Kasi Sungshit Nangyo. Opening remarks by Dr. Tsawang Wuju, President of Tibetan American Foundation of Minnesota.
Pajasishi, Suge, Onsalame Namdi, Yamgyo, Yawatamji, Kinjisipa Chimbuch, Cholo, Kusum, Ujatanji, Shusu Bimu, Ega Minnesota Sunny Puri Chipin Sope, Chida Sode, Shubashi, Mobuchon, Terin Dige, China Miri Yons, Yola, Sunjo and Golo, Cutting, Chidu, Kashes and Papa, Queen, Niman Yombi. Substitute cutting che shujin. The person in Neva, Loreshi, Yaki Doshi Bamase, Consachone, do Dr. Ranja Namla, Feminam, Zani, Sajo Kambune Yuru, Femitsedenshi, Chego Botan, Tapato, Neyu, Kaka Tetan, Te Yuchimla, Sisunki, Leke, Butapan, Zaninchi, Desert, Sama Ponkinshi. Chagopor, Kalok Yaya Pepsi Park, Masu, Kamo Teta, Totabla, Bezenki, Chashi, Samle Madu Nahan, Combat the Bush, Cheshi Yobe, Ije Shugi, Chili, Somani Mira, Kisho Pasu, Nyamroki, Chive, Ledun Ruchoki, Kuri Kuntapsu, Bezen Shushin, Lorenshi, Rishun Lope, Futuki, Chambor, rimba la ten zinkang shungkyo ki kange sudapsu kangba cheba shik kudu kutak shushin yin tadun tendu chidang tadun tendu chidang yue meri ki che onsa chok kuze shabe deji tuki shenden tada peme lungi duba tang nime lume lang suju yu pöde benda nyudu seve mödu shuju yin tashi dere On behalf of Minnesota Tibetan American community and friends, we wish to express our heartfelt gratitude and immense joy to Your Holiness for granting this very special audience, and also for accepting our request to teach on the 8 verses of mind training and the generation of bodhicitta. Those of us present here today and those watching through the live webcast jointly celebrate several things. Foremost, we rejoice Your Holiness's well-being. Secondly, we celebrate Losar, Tibetan New Year, which fell on the 9th of this month. Having not seen Tibet myself, but having heard how Losar celebration would go on for weeks, I can only imagine the level of nostalgia stirring in our elders who are celebrating Losar for over 2 weeks here in Minnesota for the very first time. It must be quite a pleasant and maybe at times even bittersweet walk down memory lane to a Tibet prior to 1959. We also commemorate Chobu Kyujin, meaning Great Day of Miraculous Manifestations, which marks an important event in the life of Buddha Shakyamuni. Finally, this year happens to be the Lunar Monkey Year, which is associated with Guru Padmasambhava. Hence, the time could not be more auspicious to celebrate your presence, receive invaluable teachings, and learn from your timeless wisdom. It is truly a joyous occasion of sharing, growing, and celebrating. Your mere presence encourages us to become better human beings. If only we could contemplate, practice, and inculcate a mere fraction of what you teach and embody, each one of us would evolve into a much happier and kinder version of our former self. Hence, we would all become contributing members of society, thereby living what you often call a meaningful life filled with deep purpose. As for the Minnesota Tibetan community, it is thriving and growing. I take this opportunity to thank the state of Minnesota and everyone who opened their arms and lent the helping hand. Our pressing need continues to be a bigger community space, mainly for the growing number of students attending the Tibetan Cultural School, where Chatham attempts to teach what has been Your Holiness' consistent advice to Tibetans. That is, to lead a life that encompasses 3 qualities. First, to be an authentic member of the Tibetan diaspora. Second, to be a law-abiding and contributing member of the local community that one lives in. And ultimately, to be a truly global citizen. Millions all over the globe were overjoyed to get Your Holiness's Losar message, and more importantly, to learn that the medical treatment is progressing very well. We supplicate you to live long and well, so as to continue benefiting all beings and the environment we collectively inhabit. Thank you. May I now request Your Holiness to address the public and best through the teachings.
I always start and I give talk, use brothers, sisters. When I consider audience, you all consider my brothers, sisters. Then furthermore, 7 billion human beings are our brothers, sisters. Then I feel I never get the feeling of loneliness. If I stress, I'm His Holiness the Dalai Lama, then out of 7 billion, 1 Dalai Lama, I feel lonely. That's right. So I always say, start, brothers, sisters, and maybe a little bit so because of that. Because of formal living, I think respected elder brothers, sisters, and rest brothers and sisters. That's all. So at the beginning, some of them asked me I should speak more Tibetan. Of course, here, main audience is Tibetan. However, I have a good translator here, so if he translates, he sense, you can translate. Yeah, that very day, the Hasana day, you know, so that they will get you. Lomungu, there's such a detention. And such that middle south of the area, keep such a lot of music. And we send you that. So I'm going to do it. Anyway, telling that mention Mayo Hospital, then I'm not too much. I did two to the Dutch section on the yard. And the need, thank you, she mentioned you lose measure changing. And kind the Gambe measure change. To simply down today, you use station. And any logic, which they got Rosaji de Dapre, Kaduski. And that near the county and college, Yayons and Barre, Katsumari, and the day, not very steady or suddenly Yayon was a town. Mario and Chituna, and the day was two Shaka. And together, she done levels in the middle, and together, because the soldiers in the middle of the social area, and as a permit, San and County of Inaya, permitting more casual. Some catch you the body, and circle and mirror, the drink does some good catch you the body, a mirror, but Gunzi to be actually that they do on the best use and to share it, I shall come to. Now, the Zanjo Chani, local students, don't take it. And the third to lose on it, Chigano, that was the Chindia. Halam Pearl being Lugunania, Chimpania, Sessuchi, Turchi, Chomberedi, in a the Pedashin Mangi. When a Indo Hassan. And Namshu. Think when she mirror, Mutuni Junzi, Chayaka, and so she should Chilicasimati, Hana, Kane Sushari. When I saw in Yaka Chili, Pere Pumi, Chet, Shasashana, and a Halam, Yavokoya such. Finishing that warrior, Daddy, Zeti, one of the summer had better than England. See, Bazui Chen, that looks dead. And had a chosen of the century in the way. Local Sumara, dealing with Chime, to put up a chase. As a Pumi Salad, one is a Kumbutea Chili, some better says it. And 300 days after that. You see that they want it, you know, to do the job of all. And Coco did something. Genji said, some of the production to share 16. And Taduinaya, that around the Canada, century, how much they could do that. Halam, 我想把萨邦那么的美美推出自己来出来。这里呢，俺从我呢两百里以前，全国上下，好生当大前年，这里基本上说是一起前线。刚刚退出美呢，当年前年，这都是两年，但大家那时候，我知道那些新没学过，我说刚开始处理了的，在这里研究的，这个说是百岁前。他是这位呢，这个我是超过体育，现在蒙古的也有3年，我就单单我就考了考生，的小今年我就头那当肯定就会3些，哈佛头给你确实就是说，肯定是有这个问题，这我呢就我就中国是3个国家。最开始我是什么？全部每个长辈要的，全每个人要的。这里呢，马上是河里的，我当上人，还是打不进的，有这个商业的，在哪人的区域里，等这个就370所，等这里，哈朗都是小学上大学呢，人们的积累啊，就是考了抗生的，看到其他就要的，所以这里研究像从了第3个讲。俺上就这个确实就是定时体育的问题，俺上就给予很多这个压力。真正的，给予现大的人物，他天天就是的来下做的，把这压力。这里呢，俺上就各有对于不是说就是他是要的，第一他推动压力，是第二个没是保健是的话，但他恰恰那个，现在也新疆压力。现在准备各种东西来，在哪年的开了我不知，我呢看那个我有年数，西年数，南平年数，地质这边，日本他们呢，日本这个建，日本大实建，但我不晓得这个有的问题，休息了一下，但我这交际全是这个的，没问我心里的，没问我体育的。这些当然是特别的人力的啊，这有的呢，这个南区这个3六路那里，这怎么也对了？这个当然这一个诉求啊。这所属给予那里要的嘛，都给予那么多，实际上当然是可以给予的休息大机会，但3个通过说了，这个3个这个这个人呢，上面这个就是说，那这个也在心理上那个要嘛的，能上路的这类，这个真正的这个大部分学术之类这个，道路之类这个，但是到了可以修起来下，在这里也对，这样子推了那些说是攀比见到的，但没有上了就到家被开始的，这是话，要不然跟这个找不了的。但是那种俄罗斯样子，他们要没做到的，没人理的，各路的抓差些，他们都开始他的问题，但是包都修的下来，现在我说，那种出去市场里啊，那种我现在做，但是包都修下来的，哪来不上课的，哪来包都修下来有什么差别？是在根本都是做的，但选举中的这样子的他们超过年纪这些个这个选举，现在没有少的上到哪里啊？特色肯定是，占据的肯定是他的，占据的年龄肯定是7%了。他的那个人竞争的地方，这个确实是什么是的，可能村里面那里呢，同样下起来是差别一样的，少的人才的，这样子我就得下的，开始不下。第什么的退役的，就在选举中退役的啊，我现在那时候在这里的，但还是期间有考虑的，就是你退役到你啊，同样都是在确定的，到时候的确定的，是的，他是太阳马上去。这是补充入的这个空气的，然后都是源于 environment 这个源于它的属性是有在呢，就是说 讲说说起，不说，他们是供应多点，就是忙是当的，就开始鼓励啊，这样起来开始不是，我听这个，他们是没有社会，还是要求下去。都是还挺重要，是多了。OK， descent downstairs descent。
So here in Minnesota, we have many Tibetans who have arrived as refugees in the beginning, and it's been many years since they came here. And then there are new generations of Tibetans also who were born and brought up in this state, in the United States. And since I've come to Mayo Clinic for treatment this time, and Mayo Clinic is a place where I've been receiving treatment for over 10 years now, and this time, just last year, we made the decision that have the medical treatment here for my prostate problem, and therefore I have come here, and then we also have celebrated some time ago, 2 years ago, so we celebrated the Tibetan New Year in Minnesota as well. And so I feel glad to meet everyone this time again here instead of you coming over to Rochester. I decided to come over here in Minneapolis to give this teaching. And as Dr. Tewama said in his opening remarks, that the Tibetans here are keeping up with our own traditional values, and which is, I'm very glad to hear that you are preserving our own traditional values, culture and religion. And since we came into exile, it's been 57 years, and especially since the turmoil started inside Tibet, it's been over 60 years. But during this most critical time in our history of Tibet, as Tibetans, we have kept up with our Tibetan spirit very strongly, and especially inside Tibet, although people have to stake their life just for preserving and promoting our own language and culture and religion, still they have a very strong Tibetan spirit, which is praiseworthy. And also we in exile have kept up with these values that we cherish. And so I take this opportunity to thank everyone gathered here for keeping up our Tibetan spirit, our culture and religion. And in the beginning of our exile life, of course, we were strangers to different places. And the only things we knew, as we say in Tibetan, were the sky and the earth, and nothing else. And still, although we underwent lots of difficulties and problems, we kept up. I mean, we put effort, of course, with the help of many friends who have been very kind to us, generous to us in helping us. And so we have been able to keep the Tibetan spirit and the Tibetan values, culture. And it's very important for us to make clear, of course, and introduce our rich cultural tradition, religion, culture to others, our friends. And particularly with regards to our religious tradition, which comes from the Nalanda monastic university tradition, with this profound and rich cultural tradition, we can actually contribute to the world at large. And so this our religion, this Nalanda tradition of Buddhism that we follow, which is our own pride as well. And we need to, this tradition is something which has been explained by the Nalanda masters of the past through logic and reason. And so it's even something that today the scientists here are also taking interest in because of being based on reason and logic. And so in I'm now turning 81 or 82, and I meet many people around the world. And we have, what I've found is that we have this unique religious tradition and culture, which we as Tibetans actually can learn through our own language. We don't have to rely on any other language or Sanskrit or any other language, but we have our own language to learn this culture and religion. And in this modern age, of course, with regards to the modern subjects such as science and others subjects, Tibetan may have maybe inadequate or limited vocabulary for these different subjects, but with regard to the Nalanda, rich and profound Nalanda tradition, we have our own language through which we can learn, preserve the Nalanda tradition. And then with regards to the people, who are the elder people, those who came in the beginning of our exile lives, most of them are no more with us. And I see here and in other places also, many people who were young at the time when we came into exile, but they have aged now. And when I see them aged, I also find myself, it also reminds me that I have also aged. And so it's the responsibility of the older generation to introduce our religion and culture to the younger generation, and
I'm confused.
So the older generation have this responsibility to introduce our culture and religion to the younger generation. And this culture that we have, as I said earlier, is something which even scientists today take interest in, to learn from. With regard to psychology and science of mind, they learn a lot from our tradition. And we as Tibetans have our own language, and therefore we need to put effort in promoting the culture through our own language to the younger generation of Tibetans. And we also need the elder generation, or the parents also needs to keep in mind the environmental influence that the younger generation may go through, and therefore to keep them, to safeguard the younger generation, and also by introducing the values, our own values. It's important for the parents and the elder generation to take this responsibility, and also it's important for them to raise their children with love and affection. And so this is very important to keep in mind.
Oh, yeah. I think today is my sort of program, or my talk. First thought, I want to share my basics of thinking. and also, I think, some experience. As a human being, not as a Buddhist, certainly not as a Dalai Lama. As a human being, till my death, I committed effort to create happy humanity, peaceful humanity, that ultimately related with sense of concern, others with. That's compassion. So according to my own experience, and also now some scientists also now say, a lot of problems which we are facing now today, actually our own creation. Of course, except major disaster is something different. A lot of problems which we are facing. Worst, I think, killing. When we heard a tiger or elephant attack one human being, we feel something uncomfortable, feel pity, that one. But then, nowadays, unfortunately, a human being killing another human being, that almost become like normal. Now, for example, just a moment here, we are quite, let's say, peaceful, happy. But same planet, same human being, many thousands dying out of human, out of violence which we created. And then worst thing, even in the name of religion, killing each other, unthinkable. So then we have to think, what is the ultimate causes? I feel all these human actions, physical action, verbal action, actually related with our emotions. So with emotion, anger, suspicion, distrust, hatred, then these destructive emotions come, destructive action come. More loving kindness, respect others' life. Actually, try to develop and keep sense of concern of others' well-being. With such mental attitude, then our physical action, verbal action become non-violence. Not only non-violence. So, I quite often use the expression. Sometimes people seriously consider about gun control. So ultimately, gun control must take place here. If people develop a sense of concern for others' well-being and a sense of respect for others' life, then these destructive action eventually reduce, or eventually, I think, can disappear. So now, materialistic world, now we Tibetans also now learning from materialistic life, materialistic sort of world. I feel not adequate paying attention about our inner value. Even our education system, existing education system, very much oriented toward material life. Not sufficient. Educate from childhood. It's the importance of wholeheartedness. It's the key factor for physical health and a happy family, happy community, and finally, happy humanity. So therefore, it is very, very important. Whether believer or not believer, doesn't matter. We are human being. Human being, social animal. As a social animal, friendship, very important. Friendship entirely depends on trust. Trust very much depends on sense of respect others' well-being, others' right. You always see, if possible, help them, serve them, if not at least harming them, then trust eventually comes. It's such sort of motivation. Your life can carry transparency because you carry your life truth, honestly. So then trust comes. Trust is the basis of friendship. So friendship ultimately related with wholeheartedness. Okay. Then physical health also. Now some scientists say constant fear, constant anger is actually eating our immune system. Some scientists say that. So therefore, you see, even your own health, calm, good, peaceful, even some difficulties there, still, you see, if you look at these problems, not something absolute or independent, no. These problems happen due to many other factors. Then, you see, you also focusing something very narrowly, that widened. It's very helpful. So therefore, all these related with our mental attitude. So calm mind is, I feel, very important. According to my own little experience, when some of my old friends, you see, meet, when they ask me, how are you? How is your health? And particularly now these days, you see, then I show my face, you see, without this glass. Any change on the face? Just the other day, you see, I read nuns, you see, nearby, my house. So I asked, if you judge my face, how old be read? How old that person? And most of them say 60 years old. What do you think? So this, according to my own experience, I can assure to you, peace of mind is the best, the most important factor to build or to keep healthy body. And with healthy body, also with smile. That's much better. Very strong body, no smile. Then some people may feel fear. So healthy body, strong body, full of love, smile. So that is the way to build, firstly, happy individual, then happy family, then happy community, finally, happy humanity. Not through prayer, not through medicine, but through awareness, through education, from kindergarten up to university level. Then I feel, and many of my friends also feel, oh, then there is possibility, there will be possibility later part of this 21st century could be more peaceful, more compassion. So here, my brothers and sisters, you also part of 7 billion human beings. Each of us has a moral responsibility. And also, you see, from selfish viewpoint also, if humanity, if world happy, individual get maximum benefit. If world got trauma, and distress, too much anger. And then exploitation, again, rich and poor. All these lack of moral principle. Consider every human being, same. So now, I fully committed to the promotion of these things. So, as my number one commitment, as a human being, promotion of human value through awareness. So please, if you consider as a your friend of this person, then please think quite often how to build. Few individuals' effort will not change the world. Even the United Nations cannot change. But we have to start. Big change, not from government level, but individual. Humanity is a combination of individuals. Billions of, 7 billions of individuals. That's humanity. So, real change must start from individual. So sometimes I feel, oh, when we think about problem, and then one individual, this is sort of beyond individuals because of the control of mind. Too big. But then, second thought, yes, we have to make effort. Who starts? Without one's own effort, ask other people is illogical. First, do yourself. Try to change. Try to make contribution. Then ask other people. Okay. So that's why request, as my brothers and sisters, please. So then, second level. Oh, I want to add one thing. You see, I have sort of serious discussion with scientists now over 30 years. We are not talking about religious thing. We are talking about human common interest on these things. And then also, last 30 years, eventually, Western scientists now really showing eagerness or interest to learn more about science of mind. Sometimes I call map of emotion, whole system of mind. I think sometimes maybe wrong, maybe too much because of prejudice, maybe too much prejudice. Sometimes I sort of express it, even in front of scientists. The ancient Indian sort of science of mind compared to Western psychology, then it looks like Western psychology is looks like kindergarten level. Ancient sort of knowledge, Indian ancient knowledge about mind, or really highly developed. So we Tibetan, as I mentioned before briefly, we Tibetan, over 1,000 years, we kept this knowledge. So, through discussions, that many scientists really show possibly because of the interest to learn, to cooperate solely. They are sort of done or collaborate like that. So now, some scientists, you see, some occasion, you see, they showed us one picture. Very, very young infant, few months old, 3-4 months old, language not yet developed. To such infant child, one from cartoon red, one cartoon. You see, one cartoon, in the cartoon, 2 children play together, helping each other. And that cartoon shows that infant is a child smiling. You see, showing joyfulness. The same cartoon showing 2 children negative attitude, one another. Then the child, so showing their facial expression. Amen. So, there was a friend of some scientists. Now they say basic human nature is more compassionate. Now I think 2 reasons. Number 1, as I mentioned earlier, keep compassionate mind physically much healthier. And this young infant child response when seeing loving kindness attitude, showing happiness. Negative attitude, it's showing unhappiness. So basic human nature is more compassion, more giving kindness, loving kindness. So when I heard that, then I really felt, now there is real hope. Because it's a basic human nature. If something negative, then we can't do much. But basic human nature is more compassionate, more loving kindness. So that's the basis of our hope. If we make some effort, use our intelligence to further nurture, that basic human good quality. That means through education. Then we can produce more compassionate, educated people. That we need. So that's my number 1 commitment. Then, the second, I am Buddhist. So, another, my commitment is promotion of religious harmony. All major world institutions, except in different philosophical views, but all carry same message, same practice. That's love, forgiveness, tolerance. So then, is the real goal, real purpose of these different philosophies. Same to build, to create sense of unity, compassionate unity. Utilize different philosophies. That's necessary because different mental disposition. So we need different way of approach. The goal is same. So all major world tradition, you can see they are really dedicated people, really serve humanity, poor people. So there are some inspiration come from their own faith. So all different faith, major faith, have same message or same potential. So once we understand that, once we realize that, then naturally we can develop mutual respect, mutual admiration. That's the basis of harmony. Harmony or not just superficial way, from heart, respect, appreciate that mind. Okay. I'm Buddhist. Sometimes I mentioned I'm quite staunch Buddhist. Because, I'm a student of ancient Indian philosopher or logicians. So they utilize a lot of comparison and sort of argument with other sort of different school of thought. So I, as a student of these things, so I know that there are some contradictions. Even within Buddhist different school of thought, so all this come from Nalanda. So there are many contradictions. So each other, a lot of argument, a lot of debate. So as a student, such kind of debate, then you can find some mistake here and there. Anyway, that's necessary. For example, among followers of same Buddha, same teacher, you see, he deliberately taught contradictory philosophy. Why? I often used to tell you, Buddha taught contradictory sort of philosophy, not due to his own mind, not very clear, confused. So one day, taught one philosophy, different one philosophy. The next audience, he taught different sort of philosophy, which is contradictory with previous sort of philosophy. So this not due to Buddha's own sort of confused mind, no. Nor, you see, he tried to create more confusion among his followers. No, he's compassionate person, Buddha. So therefore, reason is because his follower, his audience, see different people, different cultural background, so different mental disposition. Therefore, it is necessary to different philosophical views. Like with the same illness, because of different age and different physical condition, you need different medicine. Same goal, same aim to cure illness. Isn't it? Like that. So you see, all these different traditions, the same purpose to bring happy human being. Finally, happy humanity. That's the same goal. And we use different reasons. So they're like the most of major world tradition. You see, the main message is God, Creator, Allah, God, or some other name, many Hindus also believe creator. At the same time, I think over 3,000 years, I think very early one Indian school of thought, that's Samkhya. One part of Samkhya, no concept of creator. And then Jainism, no concept of creator. And Buddhism, no concept of creator. So from your viewpoint, that these are non-believer, isn't it? So, but, you see these philosophies are different philosophy or concept. Some concepts say, no God, no creator, but yourself as a creator. So self-creation. So to some people, that's a very powerful sort of method. Oh, I have to work. That's the correct way. In any way, I want happiness. I do not want suffering. So ultimately, the responsibility should, responsibility in your own children. So that way of approach is very effective. To such people, that kind of philosophical view, better, more effective. At the same time, some other people, you see, the concept of creating is very powerful. Like Christianity is a tradition. This very life created by God. That's very wonderful, very powerful. This very life is created by God. So that developed very close intimacy, feeling with God. And almost like your father, because of genes are created by such father, such God. Then what is God? What kind of God? Infinite love. So we created by such a wonderful God. This very life given by Him. So that automatically creates some kind of sense of responsibility and also some kind of enthusiasm. I'm son of such father. I must follow, copy from his love. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. So it's a different philosophy. Some say there's creator, some say no creator. But each, according to different disposition, is very, very sort of powerful, very sort of like that. So therefore, all major religious tradition, you see, real message is the same. So therefore, you see, that's the basis of mutual respect, mutual understanding. Then important is whether we accept religion or not, up to individual. Once we accept religion, we should be serious and sincere. Sometimes religious people, including Buddhism, including Tibetan Buddhism, some corrupted Lama also there. So this, you see, outwardly religious person, but reality not much serious. So therefore, about the same I think among the Christian, among the Muslim, among the Hindus, among the Jews, see, there are corrupted religious people also there. So that's the lack of seriousness and sincerity. Right? So now we all, I think particularly those people who have some belief or follow of different tradition, then you have responsibility, moral responsibility to make a contribution regarding promotion of religious harmony. Okay, like that. So now, 아니 뭐 Tibetan 그냥 무슨 그거 망체 내 이시 창조 계속 그거 그거 봐 야, 내가 이시 창조 보면 이게 하고 좀 제가 망체 그거 와라 그것이 계속 부탁한 말이야 마음에 저기 every time you get set for 이디야 수 벽에는 그들이 주주 뭐라면 그래 그것도 이 디스기 따라가는 정말 네가 아니야 네 통주 주주라래 상관 동네 매도도 대화가 시작해 동네 먹고지 나도 통대야 동네 먹고지 나도 밀어 있어야 되거든 나랑도 용도도 나랑도서 실근적으로 써줬어야 돼. 그러면은 내가 너를 미셔야 되겠다. 그래서 좀 전에 아주 다시 나도 시행자리는 내가 가서 전문이 되는데 바세라 나서네. 직접적으로 쉬위는 사실 좀 전에 동네 차원에서 써줬어. 그 차원에서 가지고 저걸 봐도 좀 전에 동네 수준이 뭐 주셔서 그런 얘기가 왔다. 그래야 저서 들리는 走走，说是的，上不那么大钱，但看到一个人，这么上，什么上，但其他滴滴早的，这当然这样，上面那里一个人是人，记得的，你要下来的，其他我的人我们这样的是，因为你车拿来一个人下的，这样下来就是说，这好的，就说这个上面那个差到战胜。 强这个气氛呢，这让人差出来的东西，这能知道，这个样子的，就是参与这些什么控制，查到这些需求，所以就在这个旅游送去了，用不用？意思说，这里面说是属于确定的一点，也是。 上不上去，长不长上去，是不是？属于的，个身体就是属于的，好的，给这些确认的人，那么这就是大事。你要是宁静的人没钱，别开心不来上。因为呢，你们去这那些的都是的。当我是台湾时候呢，干嘛加上呢？비밀이 별로 강조해. 딱 미치지. 나 사과를 다 지금로 로시마 그안에 딱 별개하신 분이 또 쇠도 소치네. 별개하신 분이 제고체 쇠도 지도시. 개체적 별개하신 분이 이시지. 애는 뒤에서 카우 얘는 뒤에서 그걸로 习近平的上面绕一辈子20年，这今天一直在那，好的，还有电视那等等，跟那样这些嘛，那种这个人年代是对不对？但철수个人的，那就是中国的，직내, 니도 직내, 애는 철칙이 되는데, 치개를 제대로. 니도 주진에, 이렇게 자산체제. 철칙이 되는데, 다 기계하고. 뒤에 말하죠. 부자人류, 당 상당, 그만에 근데 지금 망조, 양당, 내지간에 두고 치매기는, 부자는 걸 바로 깨부셔요. 아주 루즈는 안 고상가반에 양왕기 루니기가 철수있었어. 그래서 루니기 개시 그래서 나한테 해야 되는데 양왕 나만 고마서 치마야 마사를 바라리야 양도 심시도 봐. 아주 개가 없어서 그것도 주주심시도 망설간에 제도스야 이 친구는 근데 뭐 야무샤처럼 계속 또 지난 전문에 지도 쳐보지 어디를 이전에 나가서 망설간 그러자 도스래 일단에 실질을 내면서 샤사를 다 내가 그 쿨고디 도에 쳐보지 그거 남중을 이제 시기 되네 그 리쇼 아주 굽시 만지 그 Tibetan cultures leveina ne dişeti 그 리쇼 스네는 cultures leveina 처음에 cultures 인지 자원주의 굽시시다스 근데 괜히서도 봤을 때 그냥 그런 태가 양아 그러고 싶어 엔저 우리 지리네 처음에 리쇼인데 전부 지리로 때문에 그 변이들 전부 지리 미국에 돼야지다 전부 지리 지금 람든 지리야지 그래서 교정이 그래서 지리 대사가 말하는 처음 따지기 냐모 소치 그냥 공부시하기 단내내 개척시 다 디자인 도서지 사제를 실지다 하고래니 전주성 단양의 돈을 지르되 나한테 주기 계속 살리죠. 다디 지금 소식 비용 공부 디디 뭐시도 개개기 가서 돈을 지르 그래서 어도시니 장이 서로 있으셔. 어도시가 엔데네다 My third commitment, as I am Tibetan, as a Tibetan, I came to learn inside Tibet, outside Tibet, and they trust me. They put a lot of hope on me, so I am more responsible. As far as political responsibility is concerned, temporary responsibility is concerned, 2001, I started semi-retired position. Then, 2011, I totally retired. So we already have elected political leadership. They carry responsibility. I have no responsibility. So my responsibility regarding Tibetan environment is something quite delicate because of high altitude and dry climate. So we need special care in our environment, Tibetan plateau. One my friend, one Kazakh ecologist, environmentalist, one Irish environmentalist. He showed me one article wrote by one Chinese environmentalist. He, as a result of many years of study or observation, he found effect from Tibetan plateau towards global warming. You see, from Tibetan plateau, that effect as much as South Pole and North Pole. So he described Tibetan plateau, third pole, one Chinese expert. So, and many Indian ecologists, as they mentioned, they telling me because high altitude and dry climate, the ecology is such a condition, it's more delicate. We need special care. So that's my number one commitment. Then second commitment, preservation of Tibetan culture. Usually I discuss culture of peace, culture of non-violence, ultimately culture of compassion. that not only concerned for 6 million Tibetan, but I think firstly, millions of Chinese really need God's of peace, God's of compassion. Not this corruption, immense corruption. The Chinese leaders, this is very much involved about the carrying and stuff. The corruptions. So ultimately, moral wisdom. That's very important. Concept of non-violence, concept of compassion is very essential. And huge gap between war. So therefore, my another commitment is preservation of Tibetan culture, culture of peace, culture of compassion. Even I think in order to create peaceful world, compassionate world, our culture really can make significant contribution for that. So, preserve already existing, 1,000-year-old existing, this culture, compassionate culture, is very important to preserve. Then another thing, among Buddhist world, now it seems very clear, only Tibetan Buddhist tradition, have complete knowledge about Nalanda tradition. That means Buddhist psychology, Buddhist logics, and of course different philosophical views. I think in Tibetan we still carry these sort of study, this knowledge already. The other Buddhist country, very few. Firstly, the Sanskrit tradition. They follow Sanskrit tradition, China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and Mongolia, and Tibet. So now, among them, I think the literature which translated from India, I think in Tibetan language, over 100 volumes, that's Buddha's own word. Then about 220 volumes wrote by Indian masters. Altogether, over 300 volumes available, Tibetan translation. So we How old? Look at it. Roshi. 4-year-old. Very nice. It's such age. Very pure. So they don't care. They don't care what sort of other sort of faith, other nationality, whether rich or poor. They don't care. Their care is smile, affection. Any children show a smile. Then they play together. We, elder people, firstly, we take more important differences, second level of differences. The nationality, color, and faith, all these we think. Then same color, same faith, we calculate whether rich or poor, or educated or uneducated. We make a distinction, isn't it? So these children, very pure. So we really need, through education, elder people also think firstly, human level. The secondary level of differences are secondary, not important. I think the only remedy with today's problem, which we facing, all these problems, all emphasis on secondary level of differences. So the remedy is this problem is we have to go first level, same humanity. Then these problems will reduce. Isn't it? What do you think? It is logical? Is it logical or illogical? So, like that. So the Tibetan sort of Buddhist tradition, which come from mainly Nalanda tradition, because 8th century, at that time, topmost scholar, philosopher, logician, monk, Shantarakshita, invited to Tibet by Tibetan emperor, 8th century. So that great scholar or master of Nalanda, he introduced Tibetan tradition, Nalanda Buddhist tradition. So then I usually be telling my Indian friend, traditionally, any Indian here? Any Indian? One there? No, okay, no problem. So, I usually be telling, really, I feel Indians, ancient Indian, really our teacher. All our knowledge here come from theirs of knowledge, come from them. So modern Indian, I teaching them, modern Indian too much westernized. So most of these ancient knowledge forget. So during these years, these centuries, we as a student of ancient Indian teacher, we kept intact. So now, today, maybe unfortunately, students' knowledge is better than teachers' knowledge. So now, really happily, I really happy. Many young Indian and scholars now really begin to realize that, showing their desire to own their own ancient knowledge, like that. So in any way, you see, we Tibetan Buddhist tradition, authentic Buddhist tradition. Sometimes some pasoda, not much reliable tradition also there. So that I think we may call Lamaism. The genuine Buddhist tradition comes from Nalanda, very, very authentic, entirely based on reason. Because Buddha himself, you see, sort of told us, "Oh, my follower should not accept my teaching out of faith, out of devotion, but rather thorough investigation and experiment." So many Nalanda masters, through their investigation, experiment, even some Buddha's own word, they reject it. With respect, or actually Buddha taught this, but if we accept this literally, it goes against reason, experience. Therefore, they reject. So therefore, over 30 years, I have the courage to discuss, dialogue with the modern scientists. The science also, you see, scientists thinking is also, you see, to investigate, through experiment, not just believe. So the pure Nalanda tradition, very much so like scientific thinking. Like that. So therefore today, quantum physics, very similar. My Indian friend, one scientist, physicist, I think nuclear physicist, once he told me, quantum physics in the world something new. But in India, he found 2,000 years ago, some Indian philosopher, thinker, already developed the concept of quantum physics. He told me. It is true. So when I discuss with a quantum physicist, and he said, it is wonderful. So therefore, these, I think, quite sophisticated knowledge which come or develop from Nalanda, I think kept only among Tibetan Buddhists, so because of that Buddhist knowledge, no other countries. So therefore, it is really worthwhile to preserve these. The proper way of preservation, these knowledge, not statue, not tanga, not just book, but here. In order to keep preserved here, you need study. Our traditional way of study is root text, firstly root text, memorize. My own case, at age, I think 6, 7, I already started memorizing these root texts. Then receive explanation word by word with one commentary. In most cases, Indian ancient scholars' commentary. Like that. And then debate, through debate, use extensively Buddhist logic. Like that. So therefore, I think Nalanda tradition which we kept, that I think really worthwhile to preserve, whether believer or non-believer, as an academic subject. It's really worthwhile to preserve. Cosway, now the Lojong, Lambda Tsiki. That day, I think together, love the idea. To get an hour. That now should be an hour. The Sukchamuk, the captain, to get an hour is a foundation. That now should Toma, Tunalea day, Chigas, Tunalea. She had 3 years to go to a total research to be on the Daniel. It's a Sonzaka to name, to Tiba, Sonzaka to name, and now Churia, Tuna, Shabuchi, that's what it is. So, Yasa Pasa, E. Tone, and Namjurta to Missitonan, Paget, Sona Mendoza, and Gas, Passe, and Choji National, and the Gasse, Choji, Shorinanji National, those seven, Tandazula, Racharawachi, those the Chukwa. That she Namju, the Chenye, Ada, the Digitane, and Namju Beati to Gavana. She did Chisel Design, Korea, and Page Pomosashi was also to stand. Gavin, and draw huge Yedova. Then she did Chisel Design, you page Moyum de Gasate. Draw Shayori, you already in a Nange, Choko design, the Nalanda Tukchi, Tineka share, Kokoni, and Tazy. Tedegoria, and Nalende, Kevin, Kevin, together, Jimmy, 켄시 15소 차려. 현장을 시작. 애니 켄시 15소 공로 자가 루지 마음으로는 켄시 15소 별 필요 전에 공로 뒤주 당장하지 레시스. 알았어요. 근데 미슈윤이야 하나 켄시 15소 공로 자가 하셔. 지금은 공로 국제화를 시작해야 돼. 내가 자가를 모시듯이 이 캐바시에 시행이 배워서 로마 시에 뭐 도시다 시에 이게 스키지다지 와사제 지시 아니 로kul주야 레고지 내배주시 국제 서비스 드디세게 이것도 가라해진다 영락 집이는 공로 디지털이야 프로젝트나 프로젝트와 엔 공부 상해야 아니 상해 작업들이 제가 도시 나가다 캔시 쉬어서 다 콘나는데 다 캐베 수견 차리 고랑기베 나는데 아니 우모베 낭식 좀다 아니 남주사제 경험도 속나 아니 정규 공무원 정규 오마스와 아니 너는 레데 너도 다와도 틀어지 치진신시부산에 아니 정규 오마 캔시시워서 아니 너를 다와도 틀어지 수지기동 아니 투문을 다와지 신시부 인도산에 아니 정규 공마스 도송도와 세정화라 가다 정리기는 우먼 개재미 다음에 지금 세신 대수제 때문에 좀더 우모배에 좀더 지나고 지금 상당 있으면 지내고 그 다시 세들이 캔지 쉬워서 뭐는 전에 쉬우지 켜지고 계셔 공수를 때는 우모배에 대비해 시작하고 우모배 당시에 엔데는 세신 캔지 쉬워서 되셔 세신 때문에 한내 생애 중독하고 주주 야가리에 좀더 사모하고 쉬워질 투기에 되면 한 레벨 겹쳐집니다. 얘는 공부만 까마르시다. 대표를 대신하고 대표를 어느 공기 견지 시즌 세션데 그러다 우명관이야 공기 얘는 공부 나와서야 돼. 얘는 생활관이야 견지 시즌 세션데 세신 제발 부디기도와 대중나라야. 이렇게 해서 어떤 건설제 나년전이다 하다 그렇게 도시다 그리고 사직다 배식 그리야 동호 봉사 나야 아니 루치 나야 어떤 뒤에 또 개시 씌워서네 아니 중도가 드디어 아니 저 사람도 별을 되게 나네 주교주단이 나는데 샤우스 저는 지차려야 해. 저거. 라홀 서비스 하셔야 돼. 야가지. 사실 지금 문제 쉽지 않거든요. 그럼 별이 simply 별 내와서 별이 지. 주고 나랑 루기지 지지래. 매주나는 루기도 도마서 그냥 코스. 컴퓨터 루기는 디셔셔서. 별을 만에서는 사실 그때만 즉 싸우냐 쭉 NDP게 가서 진정돼서 나야 그냥 조심해 이렇게 쉬워서 샤스 로그를 지기 처럼하지 사실 그때만 싸우냐 소유자네 지금 매는 맹기 지금 개인 80여디디 다 세야 되게 처럼하지 좀 샤스 또 단주야 또 뭐야 지금 나야 그때 계시 쉬워서 나셔서 제비 이제 배울 거면 나도 로그를 지금 꾸며봐 하려고 그랬어 계시 쉬워서 꾸치에 파는 것도 있어 하라면서 나도 배울 거 봐 주스 나도 거면 아니야 다 대간에 계시 쉬워서 꾸며도 와 디비지야 내 캠업 쳐서 이제 캔지 디비지 좋아하는 거 그렇지 내가 꼭 하라고 하는 거야 가서 가서 로그를 주고 딱 가서 가서 괜찮으셔서 생존 내지 더지 저는 지금 같아. 어디를 아니 숨지법이 시작하는 거를 보면 걔한테 또 때려야 숨지 주스 말이야. 이제 세진 사탕에서 봐. 이제 사이트다 기루나 참여 숨사 시기가 돼. 얘들이 아니 괜찮으셔서 세진 생에 잘하는 하면 당연히 마사야. 이게 내가 문주님의 남주님 시작이야. 세진 티브리스, 세진 시브리스, 비비슈. 그런 절대 나는 게 없어. 어제는 뜻을 보니까 민찬의 shum사 시기가 되는데 세진 시브리스 비비슈지. 어떨 때 그런 절대 세진 시기가 돼. 신윤윤스인데. 자, 우리 지도에 제시를 가래. 제시를这样子收拾的会，一开始就收拾些。There is something I think to eat, so open it and start to eat. While you listen, my dog mouth should have some work. 어디지? 저자가 다 나는데 이렇게 지시고서는 뭐 현재는 그냥 벌고 다리 저를 개변하는 우수체 아니 저를 개와 고바 근데 그 레일이랑 더 냠차지지 아니 저 지금 별 쓰고 차네 아니 벌써 차네 나는 나네 그 철수 달에는 그 투수 실시가 제 들어 두번이고 고와 계속 돌리야다 자호 벌써 좀 유시하게 줘봐 어디 따라가는 거 그리고 아메리칸 유니버시티 대면 루주인데 제이 자원체제 신주체这个就在传统啊。我今天这个就是这个结果过，就要表示到今天都属于的意思，有点像。我就是这，我都是这，真的表示不差的，就是不连住，表示不差。三节里面不多牛长虫，而且呢，我是觉得。조지 되시나? 조지 물감을 쓰래. 아니, 걔가 좀 괜찮은데. 물감을 쓰더니 나는데 걔가 무슨 나다 진주사들이야 와. 저들이 이거 나다 나는다 기대로 찍어 찾으려 해. 도시는 조지 들거든 찾고. 걔는 두 사람한테. 도시는 나는在哪来的区域，地理上去，两个数据两方面呢，这个小简单，日本呢，就老早挑起的这个单据主要负责的，目的要了解，你做这个老嘛，准备在这里面，大本本，结果准备在这里面，这样嘛，가장 아니 가수들이 인생 지교라 숨차고도 맞자니 아니 가장 마치는 길이 가장 숨어버렸지 내가 지금 숨차고도 잘하는 제가 나와서 돌려올 제지네 내가 양물로 능력이 있잖아 유유전 마치야지 같은 능력을 쌓지. 애들이 배를 잡다 보면 이들이야 지금 크도 미국 화재 도시가 지하지가 가장 나가면서 어다 가당 규순세 중. 다음은 저기 기신을 삼았어야 돼. 가당 수고를 해지 찾고. 좀 전에 다음도 시작해. 가당 수고, 가당 눈을, 가당 명함없이 수비를 하는 게 가당 수고. 아니, 보도. 아니, 보도가 샤라와네. 아니, 차가. 샤라웨가 그때 랑셔를 있어. 랑셔가 샤라와네. 딱 보도를 또 소유제 차. 사실 수고에 주지 않아요. 가당 수고를 주지. 가당 수고에 그래서 집에 그 돌이, 너는 집에 그 돌이야. 가당 숨 죽었어야지. 아니? 뒤돌아가 치고, 숨 쉬고 나한테, 라준이, 시월에 제시, 러드,居住, 다, 해야지.居住, 다. 되네, 도지지 않나, 토명이, 창사, 자니, 사진이, 되네, 가서 시작해서 기록 같은 경우입니다. 제가 그런 유수들이 보세요. 어떤 교수님이 가로 예수님이 기록을 성이장 예수님이 사인이 되는 라주니 전투 가도 싶어. 자다. 사견시 도둑에만 치잖아요. 그다 모두 연구를 해주고요. 도둑에는 직접 수시에잖아요. 유랑을 내고요. 그런데 잠시대가 제대로 랍수기시 주주수잖아요. 사실 조금 우미수기지 네. 그다가 수고를 지다니 시작해서 내는 유비시에 현지체제에 가끔 숨벌을 하기 계속상다했어. 시 지금은 사람 이제는 숨지게 돼서 아니 숨지 주순다 어디나서 주체되게 하지 캐베 로조시스에 소소하다 양을 잘한 자가 숨지 돈이 좋아. 그래서 이제는 다가다 숨쉬기 다 시작했지. 러를 지야게 가다 로도를 세마 치즈산에 가다 숨쉬기 제일 맞지야게 계속 다시 부시. 그래서 이제는 나중에 천지세를 그돌이야. 산이 최 모두 제가 제하다 모두에 최냐면 자 두분이지. 계속 살아서. 아주 뭐지? 제는 campo, 제는 직선지 사람과 뉴뉴스마도 상사에 디 campo 상을 디 도다로 그리고 그지 시다 디셔다체 나는 디셔면 시기에 말해 마시베 칸에 엔마 스페라 사지 쇼소모도 뭐냐 사람 사지 쇼소모 되기 까마타고 니고 되기 다 저거 두목을 찾아지나 되게 말해 그러니까 시문이 문제기 퇴생 나람지디 때나 불레지기 말이야. 너는 장로도 승계도 먼저에 그 주대기 부주수비에는 주수로 개입한 말이야. 자, 다 장로 승계들이 뉴뉴지가 마찬가지야. 땅그 지금 대셔기 마도 다 시사로가 마치면은 애니 그 주대기 성으로 먼저 올리는 거야. 사실이 그냥 사실이 뭐주시야. 좀 전에 고랑이 처음부터 담수도 돌이야. 나서 로도는 시속도 봐. 신이 교수님의 소원지 너무 길이 좀 전에 처음부터 담고 시속도 봐. 좀 전에 처음부터 담고 순산에 갈수 벌써. 니네 두명하면 되고, 니네 구조하면 되고, 니네 공목하면 되고, 니네 람하면 되고, 시간에 대파시 대시를 메다서 해주시시 시간에 해주 주루시 대시 메다서 주루 안에 남수 어쩌다. 나한테만 양수를 그 돌이야 창조 소중을 남기 그러다 속으로 가. 이때 뭐 통후에 사지주 멍신 들어가. 그러시고 와. 저자하다 가로스 뒤지 로로스 주다. Now translation. Now you all work. I take rest.
So as I was telling earlier, in the 8th century, Buddhism started flourishing in Tibet. Mainly, it started, the establishment of Buddhism firmly on Tibetan soil began in the 8th century, although before that, during the time of, in our history, we learn about Totalians, and also at that time, some texts arriving in Tibet. But mainly in the 7th century, during Songtsen Gampo's time, Emperor Songtsen Gampo's time, the king started taking interest in taking Buddhism into Tibet. And Songtsen Gampo, of course, was influenced also by his two queens, one from Nepal, Rikuti, and the other from China. And so because of these, his marriage with these two princesses of Nepal and China, and they bringing two different statues of the Buddha, which were put in a monastery, Ramoche Monastery, which was built at that time. And so Buddhism, interest in Buddhism began at that time. He considered that more important, but really important, he considered it important more to take Buddhism from its origin, land of origin, India. And at that time, he invited the Indian master, whom I related earlier, Master Chandrakshita, who was a top scholar in Nalanda monastic institution at that time. And so when Chandrakshita was invited to Tibet, some Indian scholars, modern Indian historians, say that he was in his 70s when he went to Tibet. And then he must have, he lived until around 90. But then sometimes these Indian historians also told me that because Tibetans are fond of considering people who live very high age, an old age, quite dignified, they somehow, the Tibetans added an extra 0 to 90 and say that Chandrakshita lived 900 years. And with the help of Master Chandrakshita, who was the first Buddhist monastery in Tibet, the Samye Monastery was built. And with regards to Chandrakshita, he was the person who, he was a great, excellent scholar who founded his own philosophical school, a sub-school within the Madhyamaka, the middle way school of thought. And his school of thought, according to the Sakya tradition, is considered to be the higher Subtantrika Madhyamaka tradition, whereas the Madhyamaka sub-school of known as the Sautantrika Subtantrika Madhyamaka school, founded by Viveka, is considered as the lower Subtantrika Madhyamaka school according to the Sakya tradition. And this sub-school of Madhyamaka, the middle way school of Subtantrika Madhyamaka, founded. And so these two sub-schools within the Savatantrika Madhyamaka tradition are known as the Swatantrika Savatantrika Madhyamaka tradition and Yogacara Savatantrika Madhyamaka tradition. And so the former was founded by the Master Viveka, and the latter was founded by Chandrakshita himself, following the same kind of philosophical trend as that of the Chittamatra, or the mind-only school of philosophy, which says that there is no external existence of things, but they emphasize the non-duality of subject and object. And Chandrakshita, being a great scholar, could be understood from his own writings such as the Madhyamaka Alamkara, the ornament of the middle way, and its commentary by himself, and also his compendium of the reality of Tattva Sangraha, which in the Tibetan collection of Tibetan Buddhist literature we have a huge, it's a big volume of text. And his disciple, Kamalashila, who also came to Tibet later on, wrote his treatise known as the Madhyamaka Aloka, or the lamp or the light of the middle way, and also wrote commentary on the difficult points of Tattva Sangraha by his master Chandarakshita. And so, in this way, these two great masters were pivotal in establishing and firmly establishing Buddhism on the Tibetan soil. And with regards to Chandarakshita, he was responsible, mainly took responsibility of giving monastic ordination and also giving teachings and explanation of the treatises, as well as helping in translating Buddhist literature into Tibetan. And so, with these two masters from the Nalanda tradition, we could say that the Tibetan Buddhist tradition follows the pure Nalanda tradition. And there is a story about Rahul Sankatyan, who lived in the 20th century and who visited Tibet in the 1930s and 40s. Although I didn't read what he had written, but somebody told me his story. He said, Rahul has said that when Buddhism was being established in Tibet in the 8th century, with the founding of the first monastery and so forth, Master Chandarakshita was the main person responsible for establishing Buddhism in Tibet. And Master Padmasambhava was someone who helped him, assisted him in overcoming the negative forces who were hindering the establishment of Buddhism in Tibet. And so, although Master Chandarakshita was pivotal in this project of establishment of Tibetan Buddhism on Tibetan soil, Rahul had said that, if you go to Tibetan monasteries, you'll not find a single statue of Chandarakshita. But what you find actually is statues of Padmasambhava, quite in most of the monasteries in Tibet. So why could that be the case, I wonder? And so because of Chandarakshita's legacy, I also found it important to study his text, particularly the Tattva Sangraha, and therefore this text, Tattva Sangraha, or the Compendium of Reality, is studied very little in the Tibetan monastic institutions, even in the institutions where they have the study of philosophy, logic, and so forth. This text is not studied that much, and therefore, since I found it very important to study this text by Chandarakshita, I requested the Namdurling Nyingma Monastery in South India to include this text as part of their curriculum, study curriculum, and they actually are studying it these days. And then I also requested Tashilimbu Monastery to do the same. And because Tashilimbu Monastery is also known for studying logic extensively, and particularly emphasizing the study of logic, I requested them also to include this text in their study curriculum. And then, having said that, in the 8th century, Buddhism was firmly established on the Tibetan soil, but then after the 9th century, there was a decline in Buddhism in Tibet, and mainly because Tibet became a fragmented state, and therefore politically we lose ground, and also with regard to historically, as we also usually refer to these three nations, Ya, Por, Pu, meaning China, Mongolia, and Tibet as three different nations. Recently, one American scholar has done research on these three empires and these three nations based on Chinese documents mainly, and what he found was that there were these three great empires at that time during the 8th and 9th centuries. And so he called them the Chinese Empire, the Mongolian Empire, and the Tibetan Empire. And so after that, after the 9th century, when Tibet became fragmented nation, Buddhism also declined in our land. And then later on, in the 11th century, one of the descendants of the Tibetan emperors, who was known as the Ngari Chögyal, the Dharmaraja of the Ngari region of Tibet, upper western region of Tibet, was able to invite Master Adisha, whom Tibetans call fondly as Choje, and Master Adisha was from this monastery of Vikramanashi.
조지 너리 저게 아주 툴링 참 툴링의 여비 그래요. 툴링의 여비에 너리 툴링 두개 오 아주 조지 남주자스 집이다 툴링
So Master Adisha was invited to Tibet, and he went to Turling in Ngari region, the western region of Tibet, and there he wrote the path to the land for the path to enlightenment, a text on the graduated or step-by-step practice of Buddhism, and of course. Master Adisha was from Vikramanashi, and which, although it's a different monastery,
So, I think the earliest maybe Takshashila, now in Pakistan. Then Nalanda. After that, Vikramanashi. So, about I think 10th, 11th century. Then George Adisha Dibukara, Vikramanashi was, I think, a great master. He invited by yes.
So the Master Adisha from Vikramanashi monastery was invited by the Ngari Chögyal to Tibet, and he followed, of course, Vikramanashi monastery also followed the Nalanda tradition of study of the classic texts, and therefore, with the coming of Master Adisha, Tibetan Buddhism was revived on the Tibetan soil, and also around that time, many Tibetans began to write commentary and treatises on Indian texts as well. And the foremost student or disciple of Master Adisha was Dromdömpa Gyerejungne. And with Dromdömpa and Adisha, this Tibetan Buddhist order of Gadam tradition started. And within the Gadam tradition, there are these three lineages, or three different lineages, which are called the scriptural lineage. Or
the Buddha, after he enlightened, see the three, according to Sanskrit tradition, three Dharma wheel.
Three turnings of the Dharma wheel.
First, at Sadhana, the main message, main sort of teaching is Four Noble Truths and 37 practice. So that's common. Sanskrit tradition, Pali tradition. So all those countries, Burma, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Laos, and China, Japan, all these, the foundation of the Dharma, so-called. Then, according to Sanskrit tradition, then the second Dharma Kasa.
Second turning of the Dharma.
At Rajgiri. Now the Kasaju, Panjaparamita Sutra, mainly truth on the level of appearances at the conventional level. Another truth, further investigate what's the reality, then nothingness. Nothingness does not mean, you see, just nothing. No. It is not, reality, reality truth is not as appearances. Appearances, you see, there are differences. But then, deeper level, like now quantum physics now, at least because of the external thing, matters is concerned, quantum physics, because of the machachu.
When you break the things down into its parts,
then nothing can find. So, according to quantum physicists, they concluded, as far as external matter is concerned, nothing exists by objectivity. So that's exactly the second Dharma wheel is mentioned there. So now I'm going to show you the partition of the qualified that some of the teaching for the Dharma. So now I'm going to show you what we are. Kumunga Putaka, Rashi Tomaba Yadavich Towers. And these would be Rashi Thomas Canere, Rashi Tomba, Tabuya, Christowers, Su Tombo, Tomba Susu, Sula Tomba Shamai, Tomba Unit Sushamai. And it's what was in my charge. Other thing, Denis. So, another tongue there, Susu, Suji Chinese said, So, you are. If the cut off, you're taking the Susan and against your the Yidi Maranda Loria Chejan and when they give a child 9 to the more what care. If the cut off can't be even can't cut off then method of Shashana, methodic cut off share with that. If the Pasha, Kado the Pasha, substance the Pasha, the German, many methods carry for them. Or then, substance Sasha, Chasha Mama say, atom genes are red, genes are old, then an atom Kapachi, then a quark much bigger. Kaginia. So, the ball, shall I think. Not that true. Now, the Tomba is so Tombo. One of Kage never has Paris, Tomba is so so. Come on, you go to the Indian. Genshan, Genshan, Private, Genshan, the one to it. And the name is on it. More you to the dawn day, any now below the truth. What to share? Tunishores. That's the Tony Shigos Saturday, so Tommy, Sulu Tommy, Shamay, Tommy, Sushamay. That is show you then some log, it does some time. Kind of so the model in society, sharing one much in the chair, it's some time. And that day, Yao Shagaria, almost so true. And that the young adult, so she said that day, she said. Big case of that. Then third, Dharma wheel. Then you see he So it seems the third Dharma, second Dharma wheel, further sort of explanation about the cessation of suffering. Third Dharma wheel, further explanation about the path to achieve a cessation. So fourth noble truth. First noble truth, suffering. Second noble truth, causes of suffering. Third noble truth, cessation of suffering and causes. Fourth noble truth, how to achieve that. Yeah, just path. So third Dharma wheel is a further explanation about possibility of that path. So these two, according to Sanskrit tradition. In Pali tradition, not mention these things. Right? So in order to know Four Noble Truths, these two others of tradition, two others of Dharma wheel is highly necessary. About 3 years ago, I met some Thailand scholar on Buddhist University in Bangkok. Some teachers of that university, you see, we met and then some discussion. Our common practice, like 37 practices and Four Noble Truths. Yes, common. Then I asked, when you explain these things, mainly rely on Buddha's quotation? They say yes. Then Sanskrit tradition, like Dharma Kirti's Pramano Vaddhika Karika. It's a Four Noble Truth which is explained through reasoning. So that's the differences. So the first Dharma wheel, Pali tradition, mainly based on Kayaka, Sunday Bloom.
Based on scriptural authority.
Scripture. Then the Sanskrit tradition, reasoning. Yes, because a lot of logics have used logical approach. So Digna, Master Digna, Master Dharmakirti, these two truly, I think, the pillar of Buddhist logic, right? Buddhist epistemology, right? Like that. So in Tibetan translation, most of these two masters' writing available in Tibetan translation. In Chinese translation, not available. So therefore, you see, our Tibetan tradition, which introduced by Shakarashika, and all available in Tibetan writing, I think really. Sometimes I describe the treasure of Buddha Dharma, because the treasure of Buddha Dharma, every Tibetan tradition is actually treasure of Buddha Dharma, like that. Since I am Tibetan, so these words may not be very correct, so please check. In order to check, you should learn Tibetan. And spend at least, I think, 20, 30 years, then you can check. 그래서 어떻게 되죠? 야, 다게 되니까, 다게 여러 랑다 세계 가고, 다음에 선전 탐자가 20도 분량하고 두셔주가 사바에 다도 잡고 집을 쇼세, 다 소배, 다 되게, 20岁이내, 가지岁이내, 힌두岁, 주로 되게 러는 주로 사발하기, 아다시아, 자와시아디, 러서 또 있어요, 맞아. 자, 다 랑당 세계기, altruism, 贤之的，다 구매하되 랑당 세계 주저 또, 이 패치 투모를 주로 사발하고,
So to go through the text, there's 8 verses of training the mind. This text emphasizes the practice of altruism, which is, of course, a common practice in all the religious traditions, whether it's Christianity or Judaism or different Hindu traditions and so forth. All these religious traditions emphasize the practice of love and compassion.
So this is something common for all major religious traditions, as I mentioned before. Now differences.
So in the text, in the first verse, it says, "May I always cherish all beings." So regarding the difference in the different religious traditions,
in the philosophical field,
when you come across this term "I", what does that refer to? So regarding the philosophical view, all the religious traditions or spiritual traditions of the world could be categorized into 2 groups. One where there is this assertion of self or Atman, or a soul theory, the view of self, and then the other is the view where there's the assertion of the view of selflessness. And as one of the Tibetan masters has said, all these different philosophical traditions could be brought under these 2 rubrics. Although, of course, we have instinctive kind of clinging to some kind of a self within ourselves. But then what happens is, on top of this instinctive or the innate of grasping at a self that we all have, certain traditions assert that there is such a self which is held or perceived by this clinging. And there are other traditions which deny such a way of existence of a self.
路原先绿的都的甚至都下下那个路见对这个样吧，哦，这里面没有啥呢，这个大的我打吧，西部上吊啊是，都是上啊是，没打，但目的不中的，假的但目的不中，怎么了都是上大的些。
So while we have this innate sense of self where we cling on to some kind of independent being, there are those traditions where they reinforce this view by saying that there is a self which goes from this life to the next. And these traditions where they talk about past and future lives, they say that of course this body that we have now does not go into the next life, but what goes from this life to the next life is not just the mind, but there is this atma or soul that goes from one life to the next. And so they consider this to be independent of the psychophysical aggregates, the mind and the body aggregates. And not only that, they also say that this self, of course, is not affected by the changes that go on with the body, in the body and the mind. And so it's permanent, unchanging. And then they also attribute a third characteristic to it, which they say is, which is that this is a self-sufficiently existing, called a self or a being. And so these are the three characteristics of an Atman or a soul, which all the non-Buddhist traditions of ancient India assert.
지라마 너네가 샘서고 우모가 디시가도 되게 다데 야마레 잡데 다음에 그 다음에 기주차돼야 돼. 얘네야 지라마 내가 저기에 많네. 아니 내가 내가 쟤네 디베지 이거를 저도를 다사 시기야. 그래서 다음에 사들은 다시 로고 수치. 이내고 다시 직자는 엔도 궁글에 대해서부터 이야기가 있잖아요. 샤카와 있잖아요. 저들을 다 하세요. 양데 사제의 흉거지 나라 내모를 대외 아니 뜻을 정해지 다른 차에 모두 그랬어. 나보 말했어. 다음에 다시 가. 그러다 아니 군조스도 저도 있잖아요. 다 대차에 나머지 또 도시에 대마다 가지고 있어. 좀 더 뭐 시간을 아니 진짜들다 뜻이랑 다 내가서 마세 아니 다 사지 아니 풍불러 가서 그게 와 유연도 그지 다 되지 요말이지 얘네들 다 쓰는데 풍불 안에 요말이지 어다 되게 아니 풍불 안에 줄대고 찍으려 아니 뉴스로 와 유연 저도 랑겨 다야디 아니 다음스 더주리스 되게 다리 요말이지 또 지라마와네 이 우모와 타냐들한테 시행해봐도 가사가 다음에 뒤속이요. 다 우모에 애니 타냐들한테 미시고 어떤 뒤 다 루루 약속이 그 뭔가 지지버디 이노 다 가다 풍물로 와 유경기 다지 풍물 세대시라요 말이지. 그래서 다들 용서도가 몸을 우버스 지쳐야 나라 기우성이 추모이 매매룸에 나가면 남심이 꾸면 대레셔도 기우가 기우 컴퓨터에서 양다마이 제다와 지신 컴퓨터에서 뇌실 양다기 민생 당가는 얘네 롱셔버 녀를 내보고 다디 녀를 내보는 때에 주어 봐도 얘네 녀를 내보고 아니 랑겨 제 나가서도 봤어요. 내가 녀를 내봐 중시 뒤에 부서 뒤에 다음에 자는 이야기가 말했어. 낭서주마도 이야기가 말했어. 얘는 한벌도야 목으로주기 개도 풍부지는 지자를 맞이는 양을 내려다니 교육이세네. 풍부된지 식부터도 풍부된지 밑에 것이고도 애들 풍부를 떼는다면 다한테 민자 따로 잡시도 말했어. 어디서 저들이 일산에 예? 나서야 돼. 민자 따로 잡시도 말해. 마도 풍부세네 다를 채시셔도 그래. 다들 다 차슈티가 되고 그래. 근데 나사한테 신만해. 마차샤네. 다시 오면 다올 도난되니 다 뭐하는 주수시자. 다 성거로 당내 가사 가면 rak발을 초월을 지내니 대실로도 십수시자. 다 가사 다음에 천년 고아를 초월을 예들 중립니다. 대실로 주저하지. 성을 실문다 하고 나서 연구도 많아. About deeper reality, at what use is that sort of understanding? Just a mere philosophy, just a view, or something relevant in order to develop peace of mind? Now here, one of my friends, an American scientist, about his age, I think nearly 97, very old. I think more than 10 years ago I met, and then recently also I especially used the consultant, commissioner or commissioner, to say hello to him. So I visited. You see, through several decades, you see, he noticed, as a scientist, not a believer. So he noticed, you see, people who develop anger, the object which that person feels very sort of angry, so that object appears very negative. Yes, of course, we all have the same experience, isn't it? So when we develop anger, the object appears something very negative. So he mentioned in that negativeness, actually 90% of that negativeness is mental projection. He mentioned that. So this is exactly Nagarjuna's text mentioned that. When things appears, you see, if something good, we develop attachment. And too much closeness. And when we met something negative, then you see we develop dislike or anger. So both is based on mental projection. Positive appears 100% positive. Negative, 100% negative. So 90% is mental projection. So the Nagarjuna stated, anger's attachment is developed on the basis of too much grasping. Okay, I think you also want some sweet. 3, I think, sufficient. More than 3. 1, 2. Yes, 3. If more come, then I just say hello, bye-bye. So, Nagarjuna stated that something grasping independent existence or absolute. You see, that feeling or because of that view, something independently there. That's the basis of mental exaggeration. So that based on appearances, something independent, absolute, objectively exists. So the understanding or wisdom, which understand nothing exists as appears. You feel something like illusion. Then, on that conventional level, yes, we can say this is good, this is bad. Then something independent, absolute, that now person who have some experiences, and that will not come, will not develop. So the very basis of anger, attachment, these things, then become very, very soft, hard, shaking, like that. So I'm wondering, those quantum physicists, see, he not only understands some intellectual level, but truly believes in that kind of nature. I think their sort of daily experience, too much anger, too much attachment, maybe less. Although they simply as an academic subject, not as a sort of a practice for that, but because of the mental, emotional system, destructive emotion. You see, by nature, that kind of a connection. So I think understanding because of that, thoroughly sort of, because of understanding or belief. So just the other day, when I met nuns, one nun asked me, also ego, strong ego, sometimes it creates problem. So how to reduce that? Then I told her, firstly, faith towards God, Creator, and the loving kindness, that can reduce anger, hatred. Because the altruism and self-centered attitude, selfish, self-centered attitude, because of that, attitude, contradict, oppose. Then another thing, when you feel I, me, then think that I just the creation of God. So there is no such sort of, when we feel I as something very powerful, independence. But if you think more deeper way, just creation of God. So some kind of, because of the God of the because of the so some kind of just a part of, or there are a huge sort of the entire world created by God. So me, just a part. So that kind of understanding could be used to reduce strong self-centered, egoistic. So that, I think the Buddhists who have the philosophical view, nothing exists independently, is we use that for antidote, or that kind of self-centered attitude. Like that. So that's what philosophical views, Dani, Suzanne, Madhya. That's it. Kadava Sinjan Gula, the Zawache, Zawadi, Maji, Pitiness, the Kurujan in Zawache. And Suda Toga Gorina, and 让现在超大的那些，让那是说这是，现在推军都，你牛毛里啊，这个牛毛节嘛就产线的，牛毛了爬就的这是，牛毛节这个了，接上一呢，孙子们牛毛是啊的，西藏的牛毛长毛方面。热下个节目了，民族方面，马家个节目了，就单这方面说，但等这些，主要的，第孙子个节目是，但这不是中国基础的，差不多的，这是说呢，都说的是，但这里西文这个，深圳这个这方面吧，这个商务模组了，这有的咱呢。第用这些这个穿下来是，但是他不会，这个的，告诉这个上班的叫啊，这没读过阅读的，他不会找这些，现在我们的让了也先已经创造网给，这个希望是现实上的根据上，我的这种呢，全国上的那个价格上这些。初步的，他们都那个判断这个真正弄起来样，带来那个给人心里头带的，让你们生活过得带超多带的，心里头带的，接不起这些，那当然是想的，当然我的举个观念，让你这另外一种。开始的这个，这个人想法当然，先期，德国的都没做上个来啊，但是结果这个在这个样的这样，一个人学这个，或吃了药物的，或者这个养不了这个罗大山，在这里名了单说，在这里马上去吃，今天学这个到麻烦些，去个有么些的人少的可以打山这些个什么的。long job of da, long jazz, Puso, church, Tamjalo, turn your money, do that. Mean they want years of see. Tadana Maradola, turn you 1 year, now you do, now you do, you will share one end, dancing, any sword, shows this one.
So to go through the text verse by verse, so the first verse shows that one should have compassion or affection towards others. It's not a sense of pity, feeling pity towards others, but with respect one should feel compassionate or affectionate towards others. Have affection towards others. And then the second verse shows how to actually hold yourself lowly and not have pride when you interact or meet, accompany with other people. And then the third verse shows, so the second verse shows humility, the practice of humility, and then the third verse shows how in our daily life we should be mindful and also introspective in what kind of checking what kind of thoughts processes arise in us, and particularly the negative emotions that arise in us. We need to check them and so, for example, when you have this certain some kind of anger towards others, how to practice one should apply the antidote to it, which is love or compassion, and then when you feel some kind of attachment or desirous attachment towards others, how one should apply the antidote to curb it, which is to see the repulsive nature of one's body and so forth. And then when you feel pride, how one should understand that things are relative, that things are dependently originated, and so in this way one should be able to curb these negative emotions through these practices. And then the fourth verse shows how even when we meet with people who are ill-mannered and wicked and unruly, that we should not feel angry we should not feel angry at them, but what we should do is in fact show compassion or love towards them, especially. And then the verse number 5, the text itself says, when someone out of envy does me wrong by insulting me and the like, may I accept defeat and offer them the victory. And then verse number 6 shows that especially when someone to whom you have been kind and helpful, such a person, if they show you anger or scorn you and so forth, then instead of becoming angry and reacting with anger and so forth, one should consider them as one's teachers or for the practice of tolerance or compassion, and hold them dear to yourself. And then verse number 7 shows the practice of what is known as giving and taking. Giving meaning, imagining giving your virtues, the positive energies that you have collected through your body and speech, speech and mind, and then taking on to yourself from them their negativities. And then verse number 8 shows that one should not be in one's practice of in doing these practices, one's practice should not be tinged by what is known as the 8 worldly concerns. And one should be able to see also in this verse, it says that one should be able to see that things such as one's body and mind and so forth do not have any independent objective existence at all, but they should be actually seen as being like illusion. And so within this practice of seeing things like an illusion, then says, may I see all things as like illusion, and without attachment gain freedom from bondage.
I think those the believer, according to his religion, God, Creator, or Allah, Creator. So then, you see, usually you see the kings, you see human brothers and sisters, you see particularly those who dislike, you see, even if you see the so-called enemy, you see when we met, when appear, or in the because of my memory of mind, what actually to see, you see, that moment should think, appears something because of my own negative emotion. It appears very negative as enemy, but actually God's creation. And think image of God. That's very, very helpful. You see, to reduce the intensity of anger. There was one time in Jerusalem, you see, one group, some Jewish, some Muslim. So there, one Jew, he introduced himself as a teacher. So he mentioned that meeting. He said, sometimes he mentioned in classroom the Palestinian student at a mixed class. So he told the student, including some Palestinian student, he told, when you come across some sort of difficult person, you should imagine the image of God. So after, he gave that kind of idea, and some students later it is about him. when I, some Palestinian student, when they met some checkpost, some Israeli soldier or something, usually they got some irritation. When they think image of God, so that irritation immediately reduces. So that also teaches us sometimes.
So when you have these kind of experiences, negative experiences and so forth, you could also think about the illusion-like nature of things that could help.
It appears to be something very negative. Actually, God's creation, an image of God. So now here, in order to reduce our negative emotion, two ways. One, because of the method side, let's try to develop infinite altruism and with patience and tolerance, forgiveness, these things. Another way is wisdom side, or we call prajna side, wisdom side. We should try to analyze the ultimate reality. That way, try to reduce intensity of negative emotion. So, that's about 8 verses teaching. Now, at the end, Sanjit Yoga to cultivate altruism. Now here, to those people who consider a follower of Buddha Dharma, Buddhist teaching, then, like here mentioned, Buddha Dharma Sangha, take refuge to Buddha Dharma Sangha. Then those Christian or Muslim or some other sort of follow some other tradition, you see, consider your own refuge. Yep.
You may imagine your own God or Allah, whichever you believe in.
So the first, the 4 verses,
So the first, here at the end, at the back of this pamphlet, you have the 3 verses, and the first verse refers to taking refuge.
The second, cultivate and try to develop sort of determination. Now I never harm other people, other-centered being. So I totally sort of dedicated, serving, helping them. Irrespective whether sort of Buddhist or non-Buddhist, I feel that kind of place that we can do, even non-believer. Wonderful life, human being. So this should not utilize harm other. As soon as you harm other, develop negative attitude towards other, you will suffer mentally. Some kind of uncomfortable. So try to keep compassionate mind. That brings, you see, your own sort of immense benefit, calm. As I mentioned earlier, that months, years, immense help for health. And then sometimes I jokingly, half serious, telling, say, young women, sometimes you spend a lot of money for cosmetics. So cosmetic create only external beauty. So internal beauty is more important than external beauty. So you see, loving kindness, patience, forgiveness. These things there is something like a fence. You see, a fence out of destroyer of your inner peace. Very important. Irrespective of whether believer or non-believer, if you use common sense properly, with the help of scientific sort of finding, then it's very useful. Okay. So, there are 2 verses. Just use it, not necessarily to repeat after me. This is also a sort of get in notion to things. Then third verses is the 8th century's. Third verse is that the Indo-Pagan.
So the third verse is to whip up your courage to do such practices.
Oh yeah. 但是呢，然后我们这些都是，按照呢，这个人们是可以往往前，这个好多说，你这个往了，哎，你现在就已经改到了是吧？
So let's say this
and I think those Buddhists is visualize in front of us Buddha and Sangha. And then remember their inner quality, wisdom and infinite love Buddha possess. And Sanghas who following Buddha's path seriously and already gained some sort of deeper experience. These are Sanghas. So the reason why Sangha and Buddha is worthwhile to respect or refuge because of their inner quality. So in order to take refuge Buddha, Sangha, we have to know what is Dharma. Dharma, 2 kinds. One, cessation of suffering and its causes. There are different levels. One path to bring that cessation. That's Dharma. In Tibetan word, Shökujo, Gokwen Dhamma, Lamjit Dhamma, or Di-Ibudi, Shökujo Chanti. That's one. Because of Shökujo, the Yawoshita, the Gyunjeyi, Lobe Kansa, Gyunjunda, Mulube Kansa, the Sante, Mulube Gyunjus, and those Christians and some others are followers. You see, imagine your own sort of God, and including Jesus Christ. You see, consider, they are sort of inner quality, right? Like that, remember? And that goes, you see, over 1,000 years, you see, like Mother Teresa and Kasajuti and Thomas Merton and Jyoti Namakasa. They are wonderful. You see, their belief translates into action. And that also through non-violence. Wonderful. So these are examples they follow of Jesus Christ. They are wonderfulness. Like that. So visualize Buddha, Dharma, Buddha, Sangha, and with their own inner quality. Then Jesus Christ and Father, God, Father, and the Holy Spirit visualize. And then develop determination.
With the wish to free all beings,
somebody
I shall refuse to become to reach the essence of life, identify wisdom and devotion, to lead the benefit of all beings, the presence of the Buddha, mind for all is reflecting. Thus, in your space, essential beings to for the being.
제주도 쌤 깨도스들이 다 소소 탐지샤네. 다그 다른 소원 지기 내 시험을 팬들 것이도 너무 많이 삼바지 탐지샤네. 와. 제대로 다 팬들 탑고 주야디 주야 너버디 내 사지 아니 또도 미지고 싫어서도 이한테 유기도 쇼이나 아니 셴데 탐지고 두고 요래. 제대로 최저자와 현재도 남진 통을 좌우 양대 누구니 되기 쉽지 도시 쉽지
So we have recited these verses two times. Now at the third repetition, when you say, I shall develop the mind for perfect awakening, make the determination to achieve Buddhahood or whichever goal you seek at this point, and make that pledge to work for sentient beings and to become a Buddha in order to be able to help all other sentient beings.
Donald Trump never done. Roger said that you sit down and that you
Sentient beings until then to dispel the miseries of the world.
That was simply great. So that's also 직장도 생기셔야지 존재 통역원에 실업 인수 당시로서와 실업을 도와주세요. 자 사실을 주로 도와주기는 실업을 도와주세요. 대박. 실업을 도와주세요. 인식. 전에 가장 많은 파르도 친구 수산에 조조 실업이 파르도스거든요. 실업이 파르도스거든요. 세임도와 집에 파르도스거, 수도이 파르도스거, 서울 파르도스거. 주도기 파르도스거, 삼대기 파르도스거. 파르도스는 민토야비 실업을 도와주세요. 집은 실업을 도와주세요. 수립 도시에는 집에 파르도스거, 수도이 파르도스거, 서울 파르도스거. 자 조조 실업도 남지 실업을 해야 된다면 시원히 개척을 그래서 실업이 파르도스거. 근데 실업도 남지 실업 마기가 깨고 보는 것도 표현하려야 그냥 투중 실업 깨버려. 걔네 성중 실업 깨버려. 걔네 공중 실업 깨버려. 투중 실업들도 지금 라면잔에 라마 있는도 가다 지금 미 생인데 암조 거체 시시버리다. 양은 배절로지 시버리, 템로지 시버리, 투중 실업이 때문에 요말이야. 나 투중 실업이 지금 과대거든요. 양양소수 상담. 얘는 템잡아들로. 템지 mentorio is richest law. Davana Robin Lady, any the woman you would Sunday, any never dog about do not summon machine. Case it did Gavali, you do not summon soon. What a disaster to study, anyone that turning travel for the year, beautiful shape. What that the drink one, and sometime some Jewish 이시다 예버 때부터 성중기 실업 야오계의 참여를 그렇게 해야 돼. 당부 투중디 이슈상 이걸 예상하고요. 근데 투중 실업이 양양 상담 메타네 예버 통전에 성중 실업이에요. 대대 성중 실업 실업의 예버 통되고 근데 춘순을 전에 양양 지신 과거를 제일 전에 any 공중 양육에 달라야 통한 제재 양육, 얘네 제명 양육, 대인가는 양모도 치다. 통한 양모도 치고, 나중에 보면 영설에 삼았지. 얘네 더군 범인들은 제재 양육, 얘네 제명 양육 계획도, 그래서 저주성 제명 양육 계획들은 지수 소화를 해요. 나, 독립 다와리야, 얘네 공주기 이게 돈이 나오는 예번 토요일이 전속성 예배 토요일인데 되게 좋아하면서 토요일. 대내 돈이 나오 무슨 토요일? 아니 여기만 이 무슨 토요일다. 또 게임도 전에 다들 전속성 게임도 전에 토랑 전수고 토랑을 해. 싸고 토요일. 나한테 통신 법을 전에 통방방 다 공방 보야게 이제부터 뭐 소유인데 사지로 수반에 맞잖아요. 사주 두스도 사대구리야 미주기에 볼게 얘네 하고사수도 그래야 시주기에 볼게 얘네 사주에 준다래야 얘네 사지기도 토르게 어떻게 실업이 나라 gade, parasangade, Buddhi songs, or that Lamna, Runapushi. You can answer, Yemche, Tade, Moruvis, Gumadu, Yomobish, on the end of a day, Rimgi, Lot Jangni, Solamki, Jolamki, Olamki, and then Melville, Sunny for Morsha, or to see that. That's all. You have to brief. Now I want lunchtime. So food for mind now already completed. Now food for physical, equally important.
So, with regard to the practice of taking refuge in the three jewels with the Dhamma Sangha and also cultivating the altruistic intention, what we need to understand is that we need to understand these practices on the basis of reason. We need to see the reason why we should take refuge in the three jewels. And here, as the text itself says, infused by wisdom and compassion. So wisdom is emphasized, and therefore it's important for us to see and understand these practices through reason and logic. And when it comes to these practices of the perfection of morality, perfection of giving, and so forth, these practices get their name perfection because they are complemented by the wisdom which understands reality as it is. And therefore, we need to develop this kind of wisdom. Where it has not yet developed, we need to develop them. And once we have gained some wisdom, we need to enhance them and make further development and progress on. And so the development of one's wisdom or understanding comes through the three tiers kind of system. One is that it begins with that of hearing or listening or studying the teachings first, and then on the basis of one's listening or studying the teachings, one develops certain understanding. And then that understanding is not so stable and not very reliable, and therefore in order to make this understanding firm and steady, we need to think over and over again about the practices that we yearn to do, and therefore we need to study them further and do more investigation and use reasoning in order to affirm our these practices within ourselves. And for example, in the case of the Master Bhaviveka's writings, he has written the Madhyamaka Hridaya, the heart of the middle way, and its commentary, which is called Tarkajvala, or the blades of reasoning. And so these texts actually go through the different philosophical systems that were prevalent in India in those days. And therefore, by studying these texts further and rigorously, what we could gain is, or develop, is the understanding that comes through contemplation or reflection. And having gained this kind of understanding, which gives some conviction in the teachings, and then one should apply them in meditation. And so in this way, when it comes to applying in meditation in order to gain experience of the teachings, what we first go through is once you have felt convinced about the practice and the principles, then one would apply them within oneself and do meditation. And then there comes a point, a time in one's practice where one feels that if I put further effort, I could actually have this real experience of bodhicitta and the understanding of emptiness and so forth. And so in the case of bodhicitta, or this altruistic intention, one could have that kind of a sense of being able to develop the real experience if one puts efforts. And therefore, with that kind of inspiration, one goes on to practice and in meditation and develop this altruistic intention of bodhicitta. And then there comes a point where one, when one actually puts effort, one could experience a certain degree of bodhicitta, or this altruistic intention. And then when you push further, I mean, what you can experience is effortless experience of bodhicitta as well. And so in this way, complemented by bodhicitta, this altruistic intention, when one develops the understanding or insight into emptiness, through the force of meditation, one has entered what is known as the path of preparation or application. And then when you push further in regard to this insight into emptiness, one will be able to gain direct experience or insight into emptiness, which is the path of seeing. And then when you progress further, what one goes through or experiences is the path of meditation, where one acquaints oneself more or further with this insight into the direct experience of emptiness. And so beginning with the path of seeing, and so here we reach the path of meditation. And so beginning with the path of seeing, one begins the bodhisattva grounds, the first bodhisattva grounds. And so during the first 7 bodhisattva grounds, what the practitioner mainly does is the development of the antidote towards the destructive emotions. And then during the next 3 stages or 3 grounds of bodhisattvas, one practice or does one's practice to counter even the residual stains left by these negative emotions, which are called cognitive obscurations. And then when one has actually overcome all of the defilements from within one's mind stream, even these stains, residual stains, then one reaches Buddhahood. And so in this way, beginning with the first development of bodhicitta, this altruistic intention within oneself, culminating in Buddhahood, one goes through the 5-tiered path that is referred in the Heart Sutra by the mantra Om Gatatyata Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhi Swaha.
So now 2 words to Tibetan, for Tibetan. Yeah, that is the Halata Daji Hafi is a body yard. Yeah, the magician did it. Land of Shishdo. And the Tuzuma Beda, Yasif de Yuri. That's one. Kala Jaze said, and he can say, and you know, condition, Suzuka, Shoga Shishida, Mother Shishis, Suzuka. And they para it the best of the law. Because I think you should show. And trans the Sunjay because it's the Tamar said that is so young day. Can't someone put that chance. And they are the Dalai Lama in that. And circuit calculating into it that they I did mention yours to the same issue, no longer Shasha. I don't have a burner in it, didn't move Shasha, Kajakan and Shusha, and some of the under yours to the chick, no longer she started Shasha, some of them to Shishi. And they had a dead in the and she nested some to the Kajaku, the teacher. I didn't use the Mabuja also. Some of them to see and John Solo. For the time, Shaggy Gavon began to that's because of the circle, the Mabuji, that not to share. 이 처신의 결혼을 말하기에 제시되기 된데 지금 최적화된 저희의 선생님과는 저희의 이제 과는 제니 저희의 인자네 지금 너는 개발이 지금 해야 이거를 제리는 레마저부터 이제 제가 집에서 와서 되니 이내 라마도로에 탐지기 저희요 대화 탐지기 저희요 야 얘기 저희요 롱주 저희요 이제는 야 미션지기 개월도를 미션지를 해야 연구를 했어야 돼 유슈만 송도와 저들이 이미 지나서 너를 개발이 아래 힘들이 해야 돼 에 지나서도 이네 네但是现在的上当，那人就现在做的，其他做的呢，上上下下是很个的，很个的，当然这些人都是，是我做的，他这个就是，他们就说是啥呢？那么啥这个就是对研究是，他说的，那么啥这个这些这个学这个研究连接节。看见了，就是当年了。那这里看到的我是朋友的，那这每句几个的，俺懂的，那边懂是说不懂，对吧？哦，那中多到几点多啊？这个，是这个意思。看什么了？我都是这样，我都是这样，俺怎么不用？这些的，这些。
장아리 비밀지기네 권스경균 첨부초 구제 샤베 개개tembe 수deputan 슈든 수제 대규슈류. May I please request Mr. Noble Sringla, representative of North American Tibetan Parliament in Exile, Mr. Sonam Sangula, Vice President, and Mr. Tenzin Namkala, Treasurer of Tibetan, to express our heartfelt gratitude to His Holiness. Thank you, Your Holiness. For your kind information, this event's financial status has not been settled yet. All events of His Holiness is not to generate profit, and any surplus fund from today's event will be contributed towards the Tibetan Cultural School per the advice from the private office of His Holiness. We will share our financial details in the near future. Thank you all. They love one chingla you in a day, Perona. Nigeria, Shudi, Jega to Chimpuei.